Welcome to my YouTube channel where I simplify the web. This video is the part 4 of my JavaScript interview questions series. If you haven't watched the previous videos in this series, I'm going to leave links to them in the video description. You can check them out. But let's jump straight to the 5 questions that I have for you in this video. Let's start with the first question. What is coercion in JavaScript? Coercion is an automatic, or you can say implicit, type conversion where a value is converted from one data type to another. Coercion usually occurs when you're trying to carry out operations between values of different types. So in such cases, the type of one value will be converted to fit the other so that the operation can be carried out. I'm using this simple example here to explain coercion. You can see we have variable 1, we have a value that is of a number data type, we have variable 2, and we have JavaScript, which is of a string data type. And then we have this variable constant sum, and we assign it the sum of these two variables. We are trying to add a number and a string together. Now, instead of getting an error, coercion will happen where one of the value would be converted to the data type of the other value so that the sum operation can be carried out. Let me log this to the console so that you can see what we get as a result. If I come here, I run this file, you can see we have 50 JavaScript. If I also log type of sum to know the data type of the sum variable, you can see we have 50 JavaScript and then we have string. So what happened here was coercion, and the coercion that happened here, this number 50 is converted to a string in this operation. So instead of it being 50 plus JavaScript, it's going to be string 50 plus string JavaScript. If I run this again, you can see we have the same result. So this is an example of coercion where this value variable 1, let me change this back to variable 2. So coercion happened and variable 1 is converted to a string data type so that it can fit the operation that is being carried out here. There are so many other scenarios where coercion happens. I have a video on coercion and I'll leave a link to that in the video description. So let's move to the second question. What are immediately invoked function expressions? Immediately invoked function expressions, abbreviated as IIFE, are function expressions that are immediately invoked as soon as they are defined, and they are useful in cases where you want to do some function stuff or operation but you don't want to declare a function. In JavaScript, if you want to declare a function, you have, let's say, function, and then you have the name of the function like this, and let's say this just prints stuff, and then down here you have to call the function, else it will not be executed. But with IIFE, you actually create the function and it is evoked immediately. And how do you do that? Well, you have your parentheses, and in this parentheses you have your function expression. We don't have to give this function a name because it's going to be immediately invoked. So here we have this, and then here we can just say console log stuff. And now after defining the function in this parentheses, right here again we have another parenthesis which will then execute the function immediately. If I come here and I run this file, you can see we have stuff. So this function is invoked immediately. Now there are different use cases for this, but this would be in a separate video where I go into more detail on IIFEs in JavaScript. The next question is, what is a higher order function in JavaScript? Higher order functions in JavaScript are functions that receive functions as arguments, or they return functions, or they do both. So this is a higher order function. Why? Because it takes a function as an argument and it can do whatever it wants with that function. Here we execute the function that it takes as an argument. This is also a higher order function. In this case here, this doesn't take a function as an argument, but it returns a function out of it. Now let's see how to use this first higher order function, which I call HOF1. So let's say we have a function here where we call it print. I like using the word print, and in this print, this just logs I am print. We can now use this HOF1, which is higher order function, and as an argument, remember functions can receive arguments of different types. It can be a string, a number, an array, an object, whatever. But here I'm going to pass this print function as an argument. So here I pass print. Now what does HOF1 do? HOF1 would execute that function that you pass as argument. So if I come here and I run this file, you can see that HOF1 takes this as an argument and then it executes it, and by executing it, this would log I am print. So HOF1 is a higher order function. The second example of a higher order function is this one, which returns a function. So let's say I have a variable called returned function, and then I call hof2. So what that means is that hof2 is going to return this function to this variable. Then down here, I can now execute this variable by adding parentheses. So if I come here and I run this, you can see we have returned function. What happens here is hof2 returns a function that is assigned to this return function variable. And since the value assigned to this variable is a function, that means we can execute the variable, and then we have this. So the next question, explain the types of errors in JavaScript. And there are three major types of errors in JavaScript. You have syntax errors. These errors occur when the code doesn't fit the syntax of JavaScript. You also have runtime errors, and these errors occur when the program is being run after it has been compiled. And then lastly, you have logical errors. These errors occur when the syntax is actually correct, but the intended logic is not correct. Let's start by seeing examples of syntax error. Now, like I said, when the syntax is not correct, that is a syntax error. As you know, JavaScript has a syntax. To declare a variable, for example, you can use the let keyword. You have the variable name, you have the assignment operator, and then you can assign a value to this variable, let's say 59. But if I break this syntax and I do something like this, let variable name, and then I pass a hyphen, and then I pass 59, this is already syntactically incorrect. If I try to run this file, you see what we get: unexpected token this, and here you can see we have a syntax error. Let's look at the next error, runtime error. Runtime error, like I said, occurs when the program is being run. So JavaScript will not know that that code is actually incorrect until it runs it. So let's say here I have a function, and in this function I call it print because again I like print. And then here I say console.logs. Now there is a console.log, but there is no console.logs. So let's say I have console.logs, and then I say I am print. If I run this file, see, we don't get any error even though there is no logs method on the console. That's because JavaScript doesn't know yet. But when you try to execute this function while JavaScript is running this whole code, and it comes here and it defines this function, by the time it's executing this function, then it will realize that this is an error. So if I come here again and I run this file, you can see now we get an error: console logs is not a function. So this is a runtime error that occurs when the program is being run. And lastly, we have logical error. In logical error, the syntax is correct, but the logic is not. And this type of errors can be difficult to catch because you may not know where you write a wrong logic. Let's say we declare a function called sum, and because this function is called sum, we expect it to add things together. So let's say this accepts num1 and it accepts num2. Ideally, this function should return something like num1 plus num2, right? But let's say we use num1 minus num2. Now if we come here and then we say console.log, and then inside the console.log we call sum, and then let's say we pass 10 and 20. Here we expect that 10 will be added to 20, which will be 30, right? But if I come here and I run this, you see we get minus 10. Why? Because the function is doing num1 minus num2 instead of num1 plus num2. This is an example of a logical error where you can see the syntax is actually correct. JavaScript doesn't have any problem with this syntax wise. Even during runtime, everything is fine, but the intended logic is wrong. And the final question, what is the difference between the rest and spread operators? The rest operator is used to group the remaining of a collection into another collection, while the spread operator is used to spread a whole collection into another collection. And let's say we have this array collection here. With the rest operator, like I said, is used to group the remaining. So let's say I come here and I destructure this array variable, and then here I have array, which means I want to destructure it, and for the first item I assign it to the first variable, for the second item I assign it to the second variable. For the remaining items, I can basically call them remaining. So by using the rest operator, I'm able to get the remaining values of this collection that I have not assigned variables. So if I come here now and I console.log first, and I console.log second, and I console.log remaining, if I come here and I run this, you can see we have first as 1 from our destructuring, we have 2 as second from our destructuring. For these remaining items, we assign them to the remaining variable using the rest operator. So with the rest operator, we're able to get the remaining of that array. But then let's look at the spread operator. I'm going to copy this, comment all of this, and come here, and then I call this spread operator. So like I said, with the spread operator, you can use it to spread a whole collection into another collection. So let's say I have another variable here called another array, and then this array has hello string, it has the boolean false. Then here I can use the spread operator to spread this whole collection into this array. array. Now if I come here and I say console.log another array, come here, clear the console. If I run this, you can see we have hello, which is this, we have false, which is this, and then by using the spread operator, we're able to spread the array variable, all of this here, into this collection. So that is it for this part of the JavaScript interview question series. If you'd like to get updates on more videos I make in this series, then subscribe, turn on notifications, like this video, and share with others.